I think we have to say there are going to be spoilers in this review because there's so much that happens that we will want to talk about that is going to be a spoiler. So go and watch the film now, and then come back.
I think you're completely right, Alex, but I really feel sorry for the editor
Oh,
because
bollocks.
he's
That
gonna have to
bastard.
move things. Yeah, I know. Who's gonna do the synopsis?
Um, to what extent does it need a synopsis?
Well, the one that I've got written down here is after.
It starts where the last film finished, I guess, and just goes on with more killer clown stuff. I can do a
Mm,
synopsis if you like, though.
okay.
I can really feel your love for this film shining through your
I
everything.
really did enjoy this film a lot.
The last film, I felt like the synopsis was the script.
Yeah, pretty much. Whereas I feel this one, I'm not really going to be able to sum it up because there's quite a lot of stuff going on, some of which doesn't actually mean anything at all. And okay, my thing about this film, the first one, I liked it despite its flaws. This one, I like almost because of its flaws. I like the wackiness of it. I like the goofiness of it. I liked some of the bad dialogue. I liked some of the bad acting. None of that bothered me at all. In fact, if anything, it added to the experience of the film because it felt like I was watching one of the kind of one of the Nightmare on Elm Street films that kind of come out, the Dreamcatcher or Dreamweaver ones. It was like those sort of those middle of the franchise Nightmare on Elm Street films, and I love that for it. Um, and and that's sort of what I like about Art the Clown. I think is that he does have that Freddy Kruegerish thing about him, um, but completely silent. So there's none of the it's prime time bitch or any of those sort of great things that Freddy comes out with. Um, but instead we just get somebody doing this physical performance. Um, and I was actually wondering before we started this, have either of you guys done any clowning at any point, and what was it like?
I've done two classes of it at Courtyard, and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, one of the first things that we did was uh, anytime you enter the space, you take in the whole audience. And another thing that stands out is if you find something to do that you think that your clown character thinks is interesting or funny, do it multiple times. Really like repeat it. And I'm fairly certain. I'm trying to remember. I'm fairly certain Art does that sometimes. He'll like repeat an action and looking for a response from the audience, and the audience is sometimes in his head and sometimes is the person he's about to brutally murder or is in the process of brutally murdering. And yeah, I think a childlike curiosity in anything and everything. Everything can be interesting. The way a person moves their eyebrow can be interesting, or this object can be interesting. And I think art has this fascination with um, lots of different things.
And there are sort of
The-
more, there are almost more jokes in this one, I think, or
Yeah.
the sort of the way that Art will pull out one particular weapon, the sort of style in which he'll do that is so sort of so perfectly clownish, and he is doing it like a joke. He'll pull a cleaver out in the way that a normal clown would pull some flowers out of their sleeve. Um, so I think I really appreciate the kind of dedication towards clowning. And you'll notice most of this review when because I like this film a lot, um, I will mainly be talking about Art the Clown because he is the thing that we all love about the film. Um, and And really, there's not much of a film without him in there. It would be a pretty standard horror film if there was just some slasher. But that performance from David Howard Thornton, yeah.
Also, um, I think in terms of the clowning, he's got more opportunities this time because a lot of clowning relies on the audience. Whereas all the one-on-one things that he does in the first film, there's no real audience. Whereas like the stuff he did with the shop when he's in the shop, and the stuff he does when he takes the head to the kids full of. We should be doing the podcast really.
Yeah, let's
We
get
are,
for
aren't
it.
we? We're recording.
We are, but we haven't started it.
Oh, we can edit round it. Surely it'll be fine. We don't need to introduce the podcast each time, do we? I think this is good stuff.
Well, I think you're completely right, Alex. But I really feel sorry for the editor because he's
bollocks.
gonna have to.
That
He's gonna have to
bastard.
move things. Yeah, I know. Shall we begin?
Yeah, let's.
Oh, can we please just do one quick introduction and then just swap it around? Will that be possible?
Well, I was thinking like the little bit of you saying there's no film about the Art the Clown could go right at the very beginning.
Okay.
I think some of what has just been said could go before and at the end after the credits.
I know, because I really like all the stuff about clowning, because I think that's sort of because very few other horror podcasts are going to talk about that.
True.
That's yeah, sort of.
Well, let's see if it comes up in the podcast.
Let's do it. Hello and welcome to Modern Horror Stories Reviews.
So, are we ready?
Let's do it.
Welcome back to Modern Horror Stories podcast with Jamie, Dave, and Alex. And today we're going to be talking about Terrifier 2, a movie made in 2022, directed by Damien Leone. So, shall we kick off with our scores? And who wants to give this a synopsis?
I'll do it without giving too much away. So, at the end of the last film, we saw Art the Clown shoot himself in the head, and he ended up in a coroner's office where he woke up with a hole still back there. And that's where we kick off. So I don't want to say too much, but we've got a new set of main characters. We've got a new bunch of people to follow, but really it's about Art the Clown. And I was wondering actually about clowning, because I've never done any clowning, but I was wondering about your guys, whether you've got any experience of it, sort of how you felt Art was doing as a clown and not just as a horror villain. Because I sort of, some of the stuff that he does, the way that he moves, but also the way that he engages sort of the audience, both the one that he's got in front of him and also us, the audience at home, I find absolutely fascinating. So yeah, I just wondered if any of you had thoughts about clowning.
I did one class about 20 years ago. I think Jamie's done a little bit more.
Yeah, I've done two classes about 12 years ago. So so double the classes. But yeah, you mentioned some of the weapons that he pulls out, and the using a head as a sweet as a candy bowl. Yeah, I think finding sort of playfulness in anything and everything, and also a sort of childlike fascination and curiosity in anything and everything, as well as always including the audience. And as you said, he includes the audience at home and the audience around him, which is often his victims, or in the case of the Halloween Suites, it was the kids on the doorstep. But and he kept a true dedication to character. You know, there was, we know he's capable of severe murder, but when he's dealing with those kids, it's like, no, you can only have one sweet. Like there's very, like it almost seems very innocent in a way. Like his rule book. Although there is obviously a very dark side to his rule book, but he always does seem to play within the world that he has created, the character that he's created.
Sorry, before we move on, I just want to say I loved your use of the phrase severe murder. I thought that was brilliant, as opposed to the mild kind.
Yeah.
But this film only has severe murders, doesn't it? I mean, Freddy and Halloween has loads of mild murders. This one, they're just all severe in this movie.
Is that your review of Friday the 13th and Halloween? Some mild murders.
Some mild murders in there.
Well, actually, I mean that segues quite nicely into the difference I think between this and some of the other slasher films that are out there, because I think the brutality in Halloween or a Friday the 13th is almost a side product of the killing, whereas this just seems to be Art the Clown's raison d'etre. Every killing has to be a special event, with a almost every single one is a signature kill. I might ask you later which you think. Actually, I'll ask you now. What do you think of the signature kills in this movie? Or if there is
Spoiler alert,
one,
the one. I mean, I
yeah,
know exactly what I'm going to say. It was the sort of the castration, that one.
interesting.
But why did you guys not think the same thing? Because for me, that was. I mean, it's not on the level as of in that first film. There is one clear signature kill, and it is utterly horrifying to watch. And in this one, I mean, it's still horrifying to watch. It's not as clearly a signature kill, I think, as in that first one, but it's still pretty horrible. And you have to deal with the aftermath of it as well. It's not just chopping something off. It's also waving it about and that kind of thing. So it's I mean, yeah, Art's having a lot of fun, and I appreciated that.
Well, I thought the signature kill was the scalping and the girl on the bed, only purely because the mum comes home and the girl's still alive. And I think that was the one I was most through my fingers.
Okay,
With both of the Terrifiers, I've been through the fingers a fair bit, and that one I was more through the fingers than the penis kill.
right. I was sorry, I just had a thought. It was, and this might end up going in my three things to change about it. But if you wanted to do, because Art the Clown is so undefined as a character, there are elements of him that's supernatural, but also you see him take his clothes off and take his makeup off. So you're never quite sure exactly what that bound, and I really love that about it. Even though it sort of bothers me slightly, I like the fact that there's no clear definition as to whether he's supernatural, whether he's a dude, whether he's kind of been imbued with something. But what you could do is do a sort of commedia dell'arte thing where he's the sort of tricksy servant. So you could set the entire thing 17th century Italy and just do a commedia dell'arte thing, but Art the Clown's there murdering people as well. And he's the sort of Harlequino character. And yeah, I think that's what I want them to do for Terrifier 4. Go back in time.
Amazing. I'd
I
love
think,
that.
yeah, I think they could do that. I mean, in the comic book industry, in Marvel and DC, they have a lot of these kind of Elseworld
Yeah.
tales. What would happen if Batman was in the 13th century or the future or whatever? They could definitely do that with Terrifier 4. Right to Damien Leone.
Maybe I will. Maybe I will.
Well, I don't think we need to write to him. He clearly watches our videos because remember remember that our review of Terrifier 1 we recorded in 2018, of course.
Yes, yeah. He
And
took
we
all
said we
our
wanted more
advice.
character development. And or Alex, you said you wanted more character development. And I think we got that in this.
Yeah, he absolutely gave it to us.
Yeah, yeah. So
Thank you, Damien. We
yeah.
appreciate it.
So Terrifier 4 is going to take all the notes from this review.
So I I like this film more than the first one. You know, I weren't keen on the first one, and this one I like a fair bit more. It's still not my type, my cup of tea, so to speak. And I do wonder because I did like it more. I'm wondering if it's kind of if I'm getting the kind of heavy metal effect. And by that, what I mean is like I'm not a big fan of heavy metal, but if I hear a lot of it, after a while, I start to find the bits that I like. And because we've seen both these films, the first two, we've seen a couple of times. I have started to like this one a little bit more, but it is still pretty much hinges exact on Art the Clown, and there's a tiny bit more plot to this one, which I'm grateful for, but still not enough for me. How do you guys feel? I mean, you guys like the movie.
I mean, I completely understand. I think I probably have all the same problems with the film that you do. It just so happens that the things that I like about the film are enough to make up for those shortcomings. And also, a lot of the shortcomings I found quite entertaining in this film. Um, Whereas in the first film, some of the shortcomings were more to do with meandering and sort of um, where in this film, you know, if there was a piece of dialogue I didn't like or I didn't feel it was particularly well delivered, I was enjoying that because it felt. I'm going to make a weird comparison here. The first Mamma Mia film. I watched the first Mamma Mia film, and loads of people had been really, really hyping it up for me. And I watched this. I watched it when I was about 20 for the first time, and it had been hyped up for years and years and years. And then I watched Mamma Mia, and I thought this is ridiculous. And um, and then I ended up watching the second film, and I thought this is absolutely brilliant because I felt they lent into everything. The first film, it felt like a mess, and it felt like it was sort of almost accidentally messy. Whereas the second film, I felt they lent into it. They decided, right, yes, we're going to do Mamma Mia, and we're going to turn it up to 100. Um, and it felt much, much more deliberate and much, much more sort of careful and planned. So I think, or maybe not careful and planned, but it felt like the wackiness of it was deliberate. And I felt that was very much true of the second Terrifier compared to the first. Was that the goofiness, the wackiness, it all added to the general atmosphere of this is a crazy film featuring a clown who kills people. So yeah, probably not the comparison that anybody expected, but yes, the first two Terrifier films and the first two Mamma Mia films, I think a clear comparison can be made there. Yeah, that wasn't going to be an answer. That was there. I said what I said.
I love all the comparisons. Like we've got heavy metal, boxing, golf, Mamma Mia 2, Terrifier 2 is just like it's almost a parable for all the things in the world.
Yeah.
So if I was to treat this like a normal horror film, and it is it's quite niche for me. Like I say, it's not the sort of ones that I would normally go for. But if I was to treat it more like a film with a plot, there are lots of issues that I've got with the plot. There are some protagonists in the first film who were just victims, but in this film there are protagonists, it's kind of a plus. Well, I'm not even sure if it's a plus. I don't know. I don't know because I don't know where this film sits for me. But there is a protagonist, and lots of the plot lines, I feel like they might be making problems for themselves with the way all the law of the universe comes together, and this is going to be one of my improvements tomorrow. Um, but yeah, yeah, lots of the plot seem to be very all over the place, and there's at least one or two dream sequences. One's definitely a dream sequence. I'm not sure what the other one is, and I find those quite problematic as well. I'm never happy with the dream sequence.
Fair enough.
Well, you're never happy with a dream sequence. Does that mean you don't like Nightmare on Elm Street? Does that?
Except, well, I'm glad you said that actually, because there are some undertones of Nightmare on Elm Street in
So
there,
many, yeah.
and it really bothers me because I like some of the Nightmare film. I like the first Nightmare film and a few of the others, um, which goes against my dream sequence observation a bit earlier. But I do like some of those films, and I don't like the fact that Terrifier is stepping into this territory because the first film was such a blank slate. They really could have taken it anywhere. They could have they could have rebooted. It didn't need to kick off straight after the first one, but they decided to go with that. And like I say, they've got a blank slate regarding the law and the world. I'm just not sure how it's all going to pan out. I'll be curious actually. I am intrigued by what they do with all this in Terminator, Terrifier 3.
Yeah. But sticking to Terrifier 2 Judgment Day, there was I really didn't bother me at all that the law changes completely, or the fact that we don't have any idea who Art is. And if anything, I would like them to keep messing that up. I would like them to keep changing everything constantly. Because I like this franchise for its messiness. And I think if I were to start fixing it and start making the plots neater and the law starting to work and to create something cohesive, I think it just wouldn't be the same thing. So on that basis, I really, really enjoyed the messiness of this film. Um and yes, yeah, if I were making it myself, I think this route of sort of changing what's going on all the time and all these backstories and different characters, I probably wouldn't do that. But seeing as the film's been made like that, I really sort of like it. It's an odd little quirk, and I think it sort of it marks it out as imperfect, and it will never ever be a perfect film. I think so long as they keep doing that, but I love it for those imperfections.
Interesting. I've got a different feeling about the law to both of you. Is that I feel like they have some sort of plan with the law that they've sort of mapped out for their entire franchise, or at least they have sort of they have a universe in mind, and they're sort of strangely drip feeding it to us, and but they're not in a way that we can comprehend or understand, and it's kind of, for me, I find it frustrating. I feel like they have some idea that they're sort of building they're building these films and these characters into this lore that they've built up, but they're just not sharing that. They're not sharing the lore with us, and it feels like neither of these films feel like standalone films. They feel like you almost have to watch another film to get what was going on in the first film. So I thought we were going to get that with this film, but instead it's just a bridging film to another film, and maybe that will be another bridging film. And for me, I don't know if that is the case. Maybe it is like Dave says, they've made problems for themselves, or like you said, Alex, that they're just throwing things in and seeing what happens. But I feel like um, I feel like they've mapped out a journey, and I'm kind of a little bit annoyed that I'm not allowed to just enjoy one of their films, like because yeah, they don't stand up on their own. I don't think.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm really curious to see which way it's going to fall. Have they got a big master plan? Um,
I've got to say, I really don't think they do. But I don't care. I really don't care. And this is very, I'm not usually like this about films. I try to I try to be a bit more logical about it. But no, I love this film. I sort of almost despite itself. Um, yeah, I think most of the time, if I see a film that is sort of not great or it's got its issues with it, I'm unlikely to give it more than a 6 out of 10. But I just find myself so entertained by this. Um, so I don't need too much logic, I suppose, because it's a clown film, and the clowns need logic. If anything, the kind of the illogic of the clown is what's funny about them. So yeah, I love this lovely little comedy film, Terrifier 2.
Before we wrap up, I mean, Terrifier 3 is in the cinemas now, and we're going to go and see it soon. But I don't know anything about the next film. The last film, sorry, this film continued immediately after the first film. How are they going to segue from um, uh, the woman giving birth to Art's head into the next film? I'd like to hear a prediction of how you think that might go, because I quite like that ending actually. It's such a bizarre thing,
Mm.
but for me, I thought they just thought, what the hell should we do? Why don't we just have a giving birth to Art's head, uh, as opposed to some kind of logic.
Yeah, but again, you're not kind of putting me off this film in any way. If anything, you're selling me more on it. The idea that just at the end of a film, for no reason whatsoever, I mean, it's brilliant. Imagine if Jamie Lee Curtis had given birth to Michael Myers' head. It's just mad, and I love it.
If that had happened at the end of the last Halloween movie,
Brilliant. The whole film would have been so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have. I didn't think of that. Wow.
I think that's how all horror films should end, really.
Yeah,
Just you get to the end of Dracula, and there's Mina Harker, and she's giving birth, and it's Dracula's head.
I hope Damien Leone is taking notes.
yeah, yeah. What did you think of the second clown?
Oh God,
I
we
love
haven't
that.
even. Oh, this is going to be. Oh, there's going to be so much editing for you to do.
Oh.
I love the second clown.
Brilliant.
She looks great.
Although again, this is one of those weird things, and this isn't a problem for me again because it's ridiculous and I liked it. But you can never work out whether that second clown is, because she sort of starts off the figment of Art's imagination, and then there's some sort of ESP thing going on, I think maybe, and none of that quite made sense. But yep, who cares?
Well, yeah, none of it made sense, but I really enjoyed her performance. Like it was very it was very tied in with art, and this
Yeah, you could tell like they clearly worked sort of very well together and
yeah,
made sure that they got those little ticks the same and did the same sort of, had very similar sort of clown personas.
yeah, yeah. I really
Yeah,
like that.
she's great. My only issue would be again around the law of the world, and it just felt like when she suddenly mimicked the brother's voice, I was like, where did that come from? I thought she might be some ghostly thing that just can't that doesn't speak like Art, and then suddenly she's mimicking Jonathan's voice. But I'm
Dave,
going back into the real world, which I think is a big problem with my reviews of this movie.
I was just wondering, with the mimicking of the voice, is that what made you think this was Terminator 2? Because that happens as well.
Yes. So on that note, tomorrow we're going to be talking about how we would make Terrifier 2 even better. There's been some hints dropped in this review already. So come and join us to find out how we would do that. I mean, personally, I fucking hate clowns. I've never enjoyed clowns. And Art the Clown is probably the best, your nearest I'm going to get. From that point of view, it does make sense to have him like that because I just don't like clowns. Never like clowns. During the circuses, I just don't want to see clowns.
I'd love to be a clown, to be completely honest. Not a killer clown, but you know, a normal one.
Yeah.
I committed a horror sin, I think.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, Dave, when you said, I think you said Freddy and Michael Myers or Freddy and Jason, and I said Friday the 13th and Halloween, and not Nightmare on Elm Street. Um,
But
Well,
Freddy
you're the
is like
editor,
someone
so
else.
you can sort that.
okay, yeah, yeah. I'll just dub over my.
Yes, yeah.
But Freddy is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, but I said Friday the 13th. I said Friday the 13th and
Um,
Halloween, and whichever two you said definitely said Freddy, and I can't remember if you said Michael or
hmm.
Jason.
You mentioned Michael at one point.
Okay, so maybe you said Freddy and
I I'm pretty sure we mentioned all three of them, so you're probably fine.
Yeah, and also I called the movie Terminator 2, so
Yeah, no, exactly.